DCompany is one of the most definitive films made on Dawood. Have you ever spoken to him directly?
See, to be frank, I once spoke, but for a very brief period. Actually, never look at the comments under any of my tweets or in my announcements.
No, you just make them, yeah,
Yeah,
laga dete ho, and then you just leave.
yeah. See, I mean, social media is like a set of barking dogs, actually.
Now the government has introduced guidelines for OTT platforms.
In OTT and online, things to be censored is an impossible task, And guidelines also going to be difficult because you can't say a girl cannot have a skirt above her knee. You can't have a guideline as specific as that.
Always good to see you. How have you been?
Well, as good as COVID times can allow you to be. Yeah.
I know you've been very busy in these COVID times, and now you've come up with your latest film, which is DCompany. In 2002, you gave us Company, but what I hear is that DCompany is based on your direct sources in Karachi, whereas Company was based on hearsay, right?
You will get me arrested if you say that word Karachi. Please give me a break. Yes, partly it's true in the sense that, people who were directly involved in the workings of the D gang in 1980 and later on, many of them were the actual sources. But the way you said it, it makes me feel as if I went to Karachi. That's not the truth.
Yes, I would put you in the anti-national bracket for sure. Absolutely. I won't say it like that, but it is from direct sources for sure.
Yes.
And what is also interesting is that you have a casting coup because you have got real brothers to play real brothers.
Yes, because I picked up Ashfaq, who's playing Dawood Ibrahim, probably from around more than 35 auditions I've did with various actors. And once I decided on him, he actually sent me there's an actor, if you want to check out for Sabir, my brother's role. And I quite liked him. And I said, who's this actor? He said, it's my own brother. So I thought it's pretty ironical that two brothers in real life are playing two brothers in real life. Yeah.
And what is this obsession with Dawood? We've seen him featured in many of your films with Gangsters. You've also been accused of glorifying gangsters.
I think it's one reason is I owe my living to Dawood Ibrahim. Because if he didn't exist, my gangster films wouldn't have existed. And if they didn't, maybe I would have existed as a director. But seriously speaking, the point is, as a genre, it attracts me a lot, the so-called underworld. And since he is the most popular figure in the underworld, that goes without saying. But having said that, In Company was a very fictional film, loosely based on some newspaper accounts at that time of a split between Dawood Ibrahim and Chota Rajan. Whereas DCompany is actually it is story of the Mumbai underworld, the way we know it. Because underworld, though it must have existed 20, 30 years even before Dawood actually got into it, but it was like a very, very scattered and unorganized criminal gangs. The fact something was called a company, which is because of the organizational skills he had in terms of giving it a completely different perspective. He was never like a goon. He was not a guy who was hitting people. In fact, there's very little evidence that actually ever killed or hurt somebody, actually. So though it is a crime side, though it is on the other side of the law, what we can't take away is that he had a very different vision of seeing the underworld compared to Haji Mastan, Karim Lala and those old guard. Yeah. So I'm just trying to capture the seeds of that, how it actually started in the first place.
Well, considering Company is one of the most definitive films made on Dawood, has he ever reached out to you? And have you ever spoken to him directly?
See, to be frank, I once spoke, but for a very brief period, but I can't be knowing for sure that it is him, because if I'm hearing a voice and somebody's claiming it is him sitting next to him, there is no way I can ascertain that. Yeah. So it is, I said yes, I do, but I'm not very sure it could be him.
Okay, that's fair.
Because he's a highly secretive person, in the last 30 years, there's not a single picture of his which came out. And there is not a, what do you call, any audio clip or something. He's absolutely known. I mean, of course, people meet him, people see him, but he's very, very secretive by nature. So there's no reason for me to believe why he would make an exception to talk to me.
Would you tell us what he spoke to you about? What did he have to say about
Actually, it was like a very, very, this kaise aap and this and that. And he actually only talked about company.
What did he have to say about
it? He loved the film. And both baar dekha company ko, Yeah. It was, and it just was limited to this kind of a combination.
And now with DCompany coming out, have you got any feelers from the company, from DCompany?
No. See, a lot of people kept telling me in the making, and I first intended to make the film, that you will get a lot of threat calls, you'll get intimidated, they won't like it, they'll get upset. And there's no reason for anyone to actually feel that. The reason being, actually they would appreciate it, I would think, because I always showed them like human beings. They showed them like normal people as in Satya or company. I did not make a distinction between somebody is bad, somebody is good. And most of it is an internal conflicts which go on there. It's not like they're like some kind of monsters who are coming onto the roads and killing innocent people, with the exception of the alleged involvement in the serial blast case, which,
in the last few years, you've been making a lot of Telugu films. Of course, DCompany will be releasing in about 5 languages, including Hindi. But why aren't we seeing you doing more Hindi films of late?
See, that's not true. Actually, I finished shooting a martial arts film called Ladki, which is going to come in the next 1 or 2 months. And DCompany is what I've been making. And obviously, because I'm based in Hyderabad and I was locked in one small bungalow, I just made a couple of Telugu films only inside that bungalow, Coronavirus and Murder.
Yeah, you made Coronavirus and Murder. And what was interesting to me is you have really utilized the OTT platform. You have your own platform called RGV World. You released Climax on June 6th. The film was viewed by 1.68 lakhs people, and they paid 1.68 lakh people who paid 100 rupees each to view it. That means the film must have collected about 1.68 crores, and it was made on a budget of 20 lakhs.
Yeah.
So you are making a lot of money in lockdown and through your OTT platform, your own OTT platform.
Yeah, I think every kind of situation will teach you new ways of looking at films, looking at, whether it's monetizing or how you reach out. And I think technology always will have, apart from downsides, also both upsides. Similarly, the situation of COVID, like when the whole world is in a lockdown, man will always adapt to anything which happens. And I figured out a new way of doing it, even if you are caught in a situation like that.
But we all know your passion for filmmaking. But there's something that people keep asking. What happened to RGV's touch? He made Sarkar, he made a Satya, he made a Rangila. Then what happened to the RGV touch? What do you have to say about that?
I answered this question a million times, but I guess these kind of questions, people never listen to the answer because they want to keep on mulling over the same thing. I always said I put in the same excitement, same passion, whatever ability I have in every film. And if the film works or doesn't work, I don't think it's anything to do with me, because if I know how to make a hit, why will I make a flop? So you should actually ask the question, how did you make Shiva and Satya and Rangila good films? That's a more apt question, I think.
I love that.
Yeah, in fact, recently I've told about, with regard to Satya, I said, you see, great films happen. I don't think anyone makes them. So whether it's with me or a Manoj Vajpayee, Anurag Kashyap, or anyone else involved in Satya, we couldn't recreate the magic, then we can't take credit to make that. You just make a film and then the film takes off in your own life. I almost equalize it to a parents giving birth to a child. What happens to the child exactly, I don't think is in anybody's control. The parents can't take credit. Humne janam diya isko. I don't think it happens. Films are exactly that.
You think that? Yeah. Why is it, until Sarkar 3, we saw stars working with you. After that, we haven't seen any big stars being cast in your film. Was it their decision or is it your decision?
See, first of all, I never approached a star in my life. With Amitabh, you see, I make realistic genre films. And Amitabh Bachchan is the only actor who I connect to because I grew up on his films. My film characters and my film way of looking at it shaped, lot of it got shaped by Amitabh Bachchan's films of the 70s and 80s, you know. And then I make films which are not mass masala oriented, where the single screen audience or that audience, all of them would like. I'm a filmmaker because I make films out of my personal excitement of dealing with the subject matter, and I make it in a cost and a time which will make it work for that. So when you work with big stars have audiences who have very different expectations, what they expect to see in a film like that. That is not my cup of tea. I'm not capable. One is I don't want to make, or also I'm not capable of making, because to cater to that kind of an audience. So I'm happy making my kind of films.
But who's the star you want to work with? Recently, you tweeted about Kangna saying she's a nuclear bomb. Then you deleted the tweet. Is she an actor you'd want to work with?
See, I don't really have an actor in my mind. Probably the last time I had was Amitabh Bachchan and Sridevi. The reason for that is because I used to see them and I used to stand in lines in front of the theater, which is the reason, you know. Otherwise, pretty much I go only by what, I mean, when I write a script, the character I feel so and so, I think is correct. It could be a newcomer, it could be a character actor, it could be somebody X and Y and Z. And so, in other words, I didn't ever write anything for a so-called star, or neither did I have a thing to I want to work with this particular star. Yeah.
You know, you make so many political thrillers, right? Even Lakshmi's NTR, which came into so much controversy. So, you know, how do you, despite all the controversies that plague you, you don't back down. You go and make a film on yet another controversial topic. Say a film like Arnab that you're making. Do you get a lot of court cases against you? Are there a lot of like legal cases against you?
I do get. But the point is, I think in today's world, eventually if you're living in a democracy, everyone has something to say, everyone has an opinion, and everyone wants to express it in a way of their own style or whatever it is. And obviously, when you have a strong opinion, there will be people who react negatively, there will be people who react positively. But that's the thing, is a part of life and a part of the game. And with regard to people making it controversy and people doing all kinds of things, I don't really care, because actually never look at the comments under any of my tweets or in my announcements.
No, you just make them, and then you just leave.
Social media is like a set of barking dogs, actually. You know, everybody keeps barking and nothing comes out of it eventually, if you look at it. After all the hullabaloo they did with the Sushant Singh thing, now everybody became quiet because they got bored of just shouting, you know. So I think eventually I am working, I am putting my resources. So they have a choice of whether they want to see it or not. Why should I bother about what they are thinking about it? And I don't have time to think about the people who have the time to think about me.
It's like Groucho Marx. You don't want to be a part of club that'll have you, you know, very similar. Yeah. But speaking of social media, we all discovered an absolutely different facet to your personality. We all knew you were outspoken, but we didn't know you had all these out there ideas, and they all come out, you know. So how has social media really changed your life? Or like you say, it hasn't, is it? You just put your tweet and you do your own thing?
No. Actually, not at all. Social media did not affect me one way or other. Like, I was always outspoken. Only thing, the social media actually lets it be known to more number of people because of the technology of Twitter or whatever it is. Otherwise, I was always like this. Yeah.
Yes, you have always been like this. And, you know, we were speaking about your OTT platform, and now the government has introduced guidelines for OTT platforms. You have made films like Climax, Naked. I don't even know if those titles will be allowed under the new guidelines.
Yeah. See, first of all, I don't think the government has given any guidelines, and I doubt if it's possible also, because see, when we release about 150 films a year, and that you're averaging, let's say, 4 to 5 films being censored per week, and the existing censor board officers, I don't think they're able to cope even with that kind of a demand. So in OTT and online, things to be censored is an impossible task, you know. And guidelines also going to be difficult because a film has to be, even this Indian Cinematograph Act of 1962, it specifically says a film has to be seen in totality to determine what is offensive or not. You can't independently say, let's say you can't say a girl cannot have a skirt above her knee. You can't have a guideline as specific as that, because if she's playing a character who's like that, then you can't make her wear a burqa just because of the guideline. Then the whole purpose of the film is lost.
But you know, I have to say, outrage is never contextual. For instance, in a Netflix show, they showed a couple kissing outside a temple, in the premises of a temple, which caused a lot of outrage or a lot of protests about it. So outrage is never contextual. You know, they take something and then there's a lot of protest about it. And that's what's happening on OTT currently. You know, something releases and then later there is some outrage. But somehow you have seemed to escape all the outrage despite making all these films that are really out there.
See, I mean, I wouldn't be knowing of the specific context of it, but eventually everyone in the world will have a problem with something or the other. There's no such thing which will be acceptable. So the whole concept of freedom of speech is if you speak something, yes, they might get someone. If you do something or you show something or you say something, someone might get offended. Fair enough. But that offense, because you'll get offended only, you need the freedom of speech. Otherwise, if there's no offense, why do you need freedom? So then, of course, the existing laws of the country, and which section you can call that. Anyone can put a section, but whether it can actually come into the court and take its logical end, I think the noise it makes is much more than the actual effect. Eventually, they're going to target a very famous film, for example, or whatever to say. And the noise is so much, but actually the way it is played in the court, I'm not very sure it actually makes that much noise at the end.
Don't you think the process is the punishment for you to go through the legal process?
Yeah, fair enough. But I think if you're living in a society, if you're living under a set of rules and what is applicable, I think it amounts to, for me, if I want to go fast, it's a red light, I have no choice but to stop. That we got used to it, you know. If it's a red light, you stop, and a green light, you go. I think so. If you make a film on a certain controversy, you should expect something like this to happen, and you are prepared for the process.
You know, OTT platforms now are going to concentrate on family content, following all the kind of legal hassles that they're going through with the other content that they put out. Will you ever?
I think that is all talk. You know.
Okay.
Just in the context of what's happening, they'll say, no, just let's make family content. Who wants to go through all this nonsense? But the point is, anyone is making content not for themselves. It is because the audience are liking that content. Eventually, it is them who decide. So if you're going to show soaps, TV soaps on OTT, nobody's going to subscribe and buy. They also know that.
Yeah.
So eventually all of them are working for the audience, not for themselves and not for the authorities and not for the people who are going to create trouble, you know. So I think, every once in a while we get this, some court will say this, some court will say that. If I'll tell you in Bandit Queen's case, for example, the censor board gave heavy cuts, almost a lot of dialogue cuts and visual cuts and all that. Then when Shekhar Kapoor went to the RC, revising committee, they asked to ban the film. They said you can't release the film. Then he went to the tribunal, and the tribunal said release the film without a single cut.
Okay.
So if these many differences are there, and three boards belonging to the same authority, because that is how difficult films are, you know, in terms of whose sensibility, how they perceive what. Which is the reason all developed countries have abolished the system of censor. And they would just warn the public, okay, this is what this will have this subject matter deals with this, and or whatever. It's up to the consumer whether he or she wants to see it or not, and that is a more adult way of looking at these things.
Well, you know, it's been great talking to you. It's been very informative, very educational, as always, RGV. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to catching your latest film, DCompany. What else do you have in store for us after DCompany?
I just made one film called Ladki. It's a martial arts film, so that song will come soon. I will talk about it soon.
Thank you so much for talking to me. Wonderful. Thank you. Bye.